all to the first lecture under Comstech webinar series on water resource management. We are very grateful and delighted to have Professor Dr. Muhammad Ashraf with us. Professor Dr. Muhammad Ashraf is the chairman of Pakistan Council for Research in Water Resources, PCRWR in Pakistan. The title of his talk today is Role of PCRWR in Addressing Water Security Challenges of Pakistan. Also on behalf of Comstech, I'm also grateful to our participants who are joining from various corners of the world, and we have more than 200 people registered for this event. With this, I request His Excellency, Professor Dr. Muhammad Iqbal Chaudhry, Coordinator General Comstech, to welcome and introduce our guest speaker for today.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This very important seminar, which is primarily focused on the most important issue, which is water. See, water is life. When you want to go to any planetary structures, you want to go to any star or any planet, this is the first thing which you always search. But on planet Earth, water is in absolute danger because of many reasons. The water resources available to humanity are available in very oriented manner, in a way that there are countries which have plenty of water, but majority of the countries do not really have enough water. And as the population is growing, the per capita water availability is decreasing. As a result, many countries are becoming water scarce. And Pakistan is unfortunately one of them. The same goes with OIC countries. Majority of the OIC countries are in the arid areas. And because of that, there is a cross effect on agriculture, healthcare, health and hygiene, on every facet of life which is related to water consumption. And water is not only an issue of water management alone, which of course we will see when this very distinguished speakers will talk about, is also much more than that. Water is a psychological issue because you may have plenty of water, but you still conserve water because you think that other people would use it, or you know that there are people who think differently and they would like to use as much as water as possible. As a result of it, fresh water is not available for the other people. Water availability is one of the most important indicators of the development. And this is a result that Comstech has created two important institutional mechanisms. One is, this is a global forum, Comstech Forum on Environment and Ecosystem Restoration. And of course, we all know that water bodies are destroyed in many countries of the world, and water is one of the most important geopolitical issues. And there is a need of reclaiming those water resources in a manner that they become easily accessible for humanity. We see in Africa, Chad, and other countries, water is one important issue which has threatened the food security and health of lots of people. The speaker of today, a very close friend of ours, Professor Dr. Muhammad Ashraf, is a water expert. He is a waterman because he is the one who has been working in this field, and for him, water is life. Water is life in all definition, because this is his profession and his passion. And he leads Pakistan's premier institution, Pakistan Council of Research on Water Resources. PCRWR is a member of Inter-Islamic Network on Water Research Development, which is in Wadam, Comstech Network in Jordan. And this is also a very premier organization, part of Comstech Consortium of Excellence. Professor Ashraf is basically an agriculture engineer. He graduated from the University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, which is a premier institution, and has earned his degree from the University of Newcastle, UK. He has more than 30 years of research and development experience in water resource development and management in arid and semi-arid areas, and most of the OIC countries fall into these two geographical regions, and has over 100 national and international research publications to his credit. He's also the editor of Journal PEDI and Water Environment, published by Springer. Presently, he's working as the chairman of PCRWR, which is a premier organization focusing on water. He's also the convener of Pakistan National Committee of International Hydrological Program of UNESCO and the coordinator of Upper Indus Basin Network. Dr. Ashraf has played an extremely important role in water policy formulation for Pakistan, and this is one of the areas in which we are looking forward to have the guidance of Dr. Ashraf. So we will be able to facilitate water policy formulation in other OIC countries. With this, I would invite Professor Dr. Muhammad Ashraf for his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Dr. Iqbal Chaudhary Saab. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from where the part of the world you are located. It is my, in fact, pleasure to be part of this, webinar series. It is basically the initiative of the Professor Dr. Iqbal Chaudhary and his team to connect the world, particularly the OIC countries, members, and share knowledge among the countries, among the countries and among the professionals of the, particularly of the OIC countries, because we have many commonalities, among our countries. Some countries are water abundance, and some are irrigated, some are dry land, some are basically cross-cutting issues. For example, water quality is a cross-cutting issue. Climate change is a climate change is also a cross-cutting issues. So we thought that when we give our present our work, what we have been doing and how we have been managing water resources, how we are able to address some of the water security challenges in the country, that might be helpful for the other OIC countries to take some message. Or we'll also see how we can help each other, because as Professor Iqbal Chaudhary has mentioned, water is life, and there is no concept of life on earth without water. So I will just give you a presentation online. I will just focus on the national security of Pakistan, existing water resources, challenges. And we have, fortunately, national water policy that was approved during 2018. What it basically says about the water security in the country. Then the work we have been doing, PCRWR, particularly in the country, water resources related to water resources management, particularly in the irrigated areas and dryland areas. Then water quality, as mentioned, it is a cross-cutting. It is everywhere issue. It's related to the quality of the drinking water, quality of the food production, environment, ecosystem. It basically relates to the whole ecosystem. It has much more implications than the quantity. Then the application of IoT, Internet of Things, we are using in the water sources management and governance. Then we will share some of the knowledge product that might be useful for our professionals. And then we have put a slide finally to see how we can, PCRW can help OIC countries, some of the OIC countries who are facing water resources development, management, and governance issues. So how we can offer them our services. Rightly it has been mentioned that basically water is life. So when we look at in fact, the national security of the country, not of Pakistan, but any country, its national security is basically linked with its food security. And food security indirectly linked with the water security. There is no concept of food security without basically having the security of water resources development and management. And any decline, both in terms of its quantity or quality, will have a long-lasting impact on the water security, again, directly to food security and national security. Ladies and gentlemen, in fact, over the time, water security has emerged as one of the topmost non-traditional security challenge in the world, along with the climate change and the food security. And water security, in fact, is basically at the heart of all the non-traditional security challenges we are facing in the region, in the different subcontinent, and in the different continents. So when we talk about the Pakistan water resources, you might know that Pakistan has one of the largest contiguous irrigation system in the world. We have 3 major reservoirs with 45 main canals irrigating about 17 million hectares of command area. And at the same time, it has one of the largest groundwater aquifer in the world. We are 4th largest groundwater holding country after India, China, and the USA. And this is very, very precious water, and this is basically it is basically the buffer. It provides a buffer against drought, climate change, flood, and all kind of stuff. It provides more than 60% water for our agriculture purposes, more than 90% domestic water. It comes from drinking water and domestic water. It comes from the groundwater, and almost 100% industrial water. It comes from the groundwater. So it is very important for us to manage the groundwater. In fact, in Pakistan, surface water and groundwater cannot be disintegrated. Basically, these are the 2 sides of the same coin, because this groundwater has been established because of the recharge from the surface irrigation network, which is huge, as I mentioned earlier. Then again, we have more than 40% of our area, which is basically rain-fed, dry land. When we say dry land, it means the area where total livelihood depends on rainwater. So in those areas, capturing of rainwater, harvesting of rainwater, it's a productive use become important and entirely important for us particularly. Because the future food demand will be basically, we believe that as in some of the irrigated area, the crops are already using the maximum water and they are providing the maximum return. The future food security will be dependent on the managing the resources in the dry land areas. And I believe that many of our sister countries in the OIC countries, they are basically struggling to manage the rainwater. So here we will be able to share some of the success story which we have done in the areas. So when we look at the major water sector, issues in the country, though we have one of the largest irrigation system in the world, at the same time, it is subject to a number of issues. The greater the system, the greater and complex issues we are facing. One of the most important, issue is the growing water scarcity. As the population is increasing, the water resources are more or less constant and stagnant. Because there is no chances of additional water coming into the system, whether in surface and groundwater. So water scarcity is growing over time. If you look at this, graph, you will see that in 1950 we have water per capita water more than 5,000 cubic meters per person, which gradually, with the increase in the population, gradually decreasing. And during 1991, we touched the water stress line. And during 2004-05, we touched the water scarcity line. And if the situation remains the same, that is, population keeps on increasing at the same pace, and water sources remain constant, By 2025, we will be touching the absolute water scarcity line, means per capita availability less than 500 cubic meter per person. So this is basically mainly because of the inadequate storage and recurring floods. During the floods of 2010, 2011, 14, we lost more than 90 million acre feet water. When we convert it into billion cubic meter, it is about 110 billion cubic meter of water. Basically, that was lost from this system. It was not lost on this from the system. It had devastating impact on the infrastructure, livestock, agriculture, and human life. And it basically because of the inadequate storage. Storage basically help us to regulate water from the high flow period to the low flow periods. We can harvest water during the flood period and then use it in the drought period, and when the water is not available or the less water is available. So there is another issue with the storage reservoir. Water we are storing at this moment is about 20 billion cubic meter of water. It is being lost at a rate of 0.2 million acre feet per year. So again, there is a huge potential of hill torrents from different part of the countries. We have estimated that is about 18 million acre feet of water, about 23 billion cubic meter of water, which is available from the hill torrents. It is again not only losses of water, but it's again sometimes it not only sometimes, many times when it's not properly managed, it results into disaster. So the management of the floods is and carry over this flood water to the other part of the years. Management of water, conservation of water during the high flow period or wet season is very important to take it to the dry period and to cope with the drought-like situation. There are another issues which we are facing and have been facing with this system efficiency. This system overall, if you look at the system, the overall system, the efficiency is less than 40%. It means 60% of the water is lost from the source to the sink. So there is, there are different opinion of the scientists, professional on this. This is at the system level. When we look at the small level, at the form level, at the some command level, so it looks like losses. But when we look at the larger side, at the system level, so this is not a loss, because the water loss from the irrigation canals and the water application on the farm, it can be reused and pump water at your discretion to supplement the agriculture and domestic and industrial purposes. So on a system scale, so this is not a loss, but this is energy loss, because once this water is water is lost from the surface irrigation system or during the application at the field, it will definitely go to the groundwater, and to pump groundwater, you need energy, and energy is becoming an issue. Not only in Pakistan, around the world, over the time, the energy is becoming an issue. Because of the huge pressure on the groundwater, mentioned that more than 60% for agriculture, more than 90% for domestic, and almost 100% industrial water comes from the groundwater. So it has placed a tremendous, pressure on the groundwater, resulting into groundwater depletion, both in terms of its quantity and quality. Again, the disposal of drainage effluent is an issue, on drainage effluent, on one hand is a issue. It's a nuisance, but on the other hand, it provides a a potential opportunity to use it as a saline water and saline agriculture if it is managed properly. Wastewater use and disposal is an issue. About 5 billion cubic meter water is available in this system, which basically comes mostly from the domestic and industrial sector, and ultimately it's going to the down to the stream. And the reuse, recycling of this water is very important to cope with the water scarcity in the future. In fact, this water is already going into the system, and this is not, in fact, a wastage of water, but ultimately it was wastage of energy, and it is polluting the downstream, the ecosystem as well. So, governance is another issue. For example, low water pricing in water. In fact, water at domestic level or industrial level are for the agriculture. It is almost free. There are normally nominal charges being prepared by the consumer or the user or the stakeholder. The another issue is the lack of the groundwater regulatory framework. Because of this, lack, anybody can install any number of tubes at any time and can pump any amount of water. This is basically the main reason of groundwater depletion and degradation in our part of the country. Another issue is the lack of the crop zoning. For example, rice and sugarcane, under some incentive of the government and with some political interference, the crops like rice and sugarcane, they are now being grown in those areas which are not basically meant for growing these crops, resulting into a number of issues. For example, now rice and sugarcane are grown in the southern Punjab, where water is already surface water is already scarce. Groundwater is saline. So what the people are doing, they are pumping groundwater to supplement their requirement of the sugarcane and the rice. So initially, they are in fact pumping the saline water, resulting into the secondary salinization. And this salinization is basically a slow poison. It's a slow process. It takes time to develop. Once it develops on the land, then it takes decades to reclaim it. So it is very serious issue. Growing crops like sugarcane and rice in those areas which are not basically meant for it. So when we look at the option which we are doing, we have been doing basically a lot of research on water resources management and governance, particularly in the irrigated area and dryland areas. One of the most important, the work we have been doing is determination of the crop water requirement of the major crops. It is generally said if you don't measure a thing, you cannot manage it. Basically, we have the drainage type lysimeters throughout the country. In fact, we are the only organization that owns drainage type lysimeter. Through drainage type lysimeter, we determine crop water requirements of major crops and then crop coefficients that basically help to devise the irrigation scheduling. And all professionals know irrigation scheduling means when to apply water and how much to apply water. Because of lack of this knowledge, the farmers keep on applying water even their crop does not need water. So this is basically a huge loss of water, particularly at the farm level. When the water reaches to your farm, it is one of the most precious water at the farm because it travels thousands of kilometers to reach to your farm. And at this stage, if you lost it because of this lack of knowledge, so it is a very bad thing for the farmer and for the whole nation as well. So as I mentioned, there is a huge pressure on groundwater. Basically, groundwater in the Indus Basin is very, very peculiar. The groundwater in the Indus Basin is basically saline because of its marine geological formation. over the saline groundwater, a freshwater layer exists of the varying thickness. Near to the rivers and canals, the groundwater is fresh, and as we move away from the canals and away from the river or the recharging sources, it becomes saline and saline. So the knowledge of this thickness, freshwater thickness, is very important to extract the fresh water. We introduced the technology called the skimming wells that basically skim, like the skim milk, skim the fresh water without disturbing without the saline water upcoming from the bottom and side of the aquifer. So we have been able to map the entire Indus plain. It is about 24 million hectare of area where we have been able to map it. You can see on the left top, the map, which shows four colors. Basically, green color shows that the water is fresh and can be used directly. Pink shows that the water is of marginal quality, and red area basically shows that the groundwater is saline and it cannot be used directly without any treatment or appropriate measures. And if you look at this map again, you will see that from the top, where we have 5 rivers, the groundwater is basically at this is basically map showing 50-meter depth, and we have gone up to 300-meter depth we have gone. So you will see that as we move downstream, and our 5 rivers, they merge into a single river. So after it becomes a single river, you can see the groundwater is becoming saline and saline. There is only freshwater pocket along the Indus River, and as we move towards the Arabian Sea, it becomes highly saline, and almost the entire area is saline in those areas. So this is one of the work we have done, and it involved huge resources. For example, this we done through the resistive survey. We use the geophysical methods like resistive survey, seismic, and use polarization. We use the isotope analysis to determine the age of the water and sources of the water. The greater this the age of the water, it means it is a fossil water, and it is not a recharged water. So we use the isotope, and then we use the groundwater modeling to completely determine the water balance. Then we also introduce the real-time groundwater remote sensing and GIS-based surface and groundwater hydrology. Using taking help from the University of Washington, we are basically, in fact, now using GRACE model to real-time to know the fate of the groundwater, looking from the space. In this way, particular field, we are developing our expertise with the help of the University of Washington and other colleagues, because investigation and mapping on a large scale is quite time-consuming, laborious, and cost-intensive. So now we are using the space technology to measure it. We are also using, we have introduced basically the Indus telemetry in our major rivers and canal to collect the data and transport data on real time. At this moment we are helping our Indus River System Authority on installation and measurement of this. This has helped to remove the human error, and now the real-time data through the velocity sensor and through the depth sensor is being transported to the stakeholder, in fact to the policy maker and decision maker, who has to take a decision about the distribution of the water. Again, we have also been able to introduce a number of research and introduce a number of on-farm water conservation technology. And one of these then is very important, which I would like to share with my colleagues around the world. It is basically rice on beds. There was basically a myth in our part of the country that rice needs standing water. So because of this myth, a huge amount of water was being used to produce the rice. For example, I give you an example. We have determined the rice water requirement of central Punjab, which is 480 millimeter. In other words, we can say around 500 millimeters. Whereas farmers, because of this myth, they are applying 5,000 millimeters of water. It means 10 times more water to grow. In other words, to produce 1 kilogram of rice, they are spending 5 tons of 5 cubic meter, 5 tons of water. So we have been able to break this myth that rice does not need standing water. It needs water like any other crops. For example, like cotton, sugar, and all those. And this water you can provide to the rice through any means. For example, on bed, on ridges, through sprinkler, and even through drip irrigation system you can provide. But the important point is that we have to meet the crop water requirement that is mentioned at about 500 millimeters. So this was one of the most important, and now it has been taken up by the development agency extension workers. Another most important thing we basically experimented, and now it is basically being upscaled. It's the control of the urban flooding. You know, you basically you might heard time and again, hear time and again that in Pakistan there is an urban flooding. The reason for the urban flooding is that over the time we have convert the city into concrete, metal roads. So immediately within no time, the water that falls into the ground is converted into the flash flood and ultimately resulting into the urban flooding. So we have introduced the artificial groundwater recharge techniques in the country, and now that has been taken up by the development agencies. One of the judicial commission, they have basically ordered the in Punjab to all the water supply schemes and administration, municipal administration, to install these recharge well. They basically not only capture the rainwater and also help to recharge the aquifer, and at the same time they also help control the urban flooding, which has become a common phenomenon in particular in our part of the world. And we can see a similar kind of incident is being occurring in Middle East and some of the countries as well. And one of our strength is the use of the tile drainage techniques and machinery for the controlling the waterlogging and salinity. Lower industrial part is particularly affected by the waterlogging and salinity, and we are basically organization those that are working on tile drainage system to control the waterlogging and salinity. As I mentioned that rainwater, dryland areas are very important. This when say dryland area, it is basically the area which is basically dependent on the rainwater. So if we capture the rainwater, if we use that water for livestock and other purposes, that can give life to those desert and those areas. Unfortunately, our organization, we have been able to develop more than 100 reservoir, each with 440 million gallon capacity. And we basically, this replicated in the entire Cholistan desert and some part of the Diya Khan and Balochistan and also third desert. After that, our work, the Cholistan Development Authority, they also developed similar number of ponds Now, if you travel in the Cholistan desert, after every 10 to 15 kilometers, we can find a ponds where basically you can see, thousands of herds. They are coming there. They are taking water for livestock, and also the human water take water for themselves. And then they keep on moving to the when water from one pond finish, they keep on moving to the next, and so on. At the same time, we are also working on artificial groundwater recharge in Balochistan, particularly in the context of the revival of the Karez system. Karez is a very unique system. It is basically called Qanat in Iran, and the others, there are some other name for Morocco and the other areas. So this is the techniques which provides water to the community round the clock, round the year, without any energy, free of cost. So this is I used to call it a pure man technology, and this is basically the masterpiece of engineering and cultural integrity, which our ancestors basically, centuries before they built this system. That this system was basically at the verge of, deterioration, and so we took up this challenge, and now we are in a process to get these Karezes rehabilitated, and we are also in a process to get these Karezes as declared to be declared as a World Cultural Heritage. In fact, this has been declared in the tentative list of the World Cultural Heritage of UNESCO. So we are working on it. As I mentioned earlier, there is a huge potential of saline agriculture in Pakistan. About more than 10 million acre feet of drainage effluent is available that can be used for the rangeland developments, for saline agriculture development, and saline aquaculture. And we are, in fact, using, you can see on the bottom left side where we are using this saline water with the pitcher irrigation system to grow some of the vegetable in the third desert. So these are, simple and smart technologies. Our marvelous work which we have been doing with the within the country is the monitoring of the drinking water quality, monitoring of the surface water quality, use of the. In fact, we are partnered with the United Nations University, and who have received developed a policy score system to monitor and track the progress on the Sustainable Development Goal 6 and its indicators. In fact, now we are a hub country declared by the United Nations University, where we are assisting the regional countries, and that is one of the area where we can assist our sister countries from the OIC country to track and monitor their progress on sustainable development goals. Similarly, we are also working on the seawater intrusion. We are, and also some of the emerging contaminants, for example, persistent organic pollutants, both in surface and groundwater, and in the transboundary water we are working on. There is a number of work we have done, particularly now our focus is because this is the era of the knowledge and wisdom, where we are focusing on basically technologies and using Internet of Things for the water resources development and management. As I mentioned earlier, we have introduced the telemetry system, which basically measure the real-time measure the discharge in the rivers and canals, and it basically convey the data to the screen installed at our office and also in the office of the other stakeholders. Then we are also using the soil moisture sensor, cameo sensor. These are again, you can connect it with the net and you can get real-time data, soil moisture sensor. And one of the most important thing which we also feel proud, this is the work we have done with the help of the University of Washington. Before 2016, the NASA data was not available for the human use and purpose, particularly welfare purpose. After 2016, they allowed data to be used for this purpose. So with the help of the University of Washington, now we are getting this satellite data, downscaling it, then multiplying it using our own crop coefficient determined from the lysimeters, and we are sending services to 20,000 farmers each week, and this service tells the farmer whether their crop needs to be irrigated or not. And this message also let the farmers whether there will be rainfall during the next week or not. What would be the wind velocity? Because wind velocity has a very important impact for the irrigation. And similarly, the temperature and the other data we are also conveying to them so that they can decide about the sowing and providing irrigation to their crops and their fields. So this is one of the important which we are now in the process of upscaling, and we hope shortly we will be able to take it to more than 500,000 farmers. Our outreach will be quite high. Similarly, we are also monitoring the groundwater real time. So it also it's very important to know how groundwater fluctuate over time and space, both in terms of quantity and quality, because this information is required to take any decision. Because over the time, the bright spot can become the hot spot, and hot spot can become bright spot. So the real-time monitoring of groundwater is very important to provide advisory on the groundwater services. And on the similar analogy of the irrigation scheduling advisory, we are now in a process to develop groundwater advisory services for the industry, and we are starting on a pilot basis. So these are some of the knowledge product which we recently produced with the with our partner. You will see we have number of partners. We are not in fact working in isolation. UNESCO is our very strong partner. Similarly, JICA is our partner. ACIR is our partner. We are working with ICARDA, International Center for Agriculture Research in Dry Areas, International Water Management Institute, WHO, UNICEF, CSIRO. We are working with them, and these are some only some of the knowledge product which we have displayed here. Otherwise, you can go to our website, which the address will be given on the last slide, and you can have a look on the number of publication and download it. All these are freely available. You can download it of any publication that is of your interest. Particularly now, I think, as I mentioned, there 2 or 3 may be very important for you. The integrated water resource development guideline, which we prepared with the help of the UNESCO Pakistan, and this policy support system, which now the EAC report is available on the UNU United Nations University website. You can also glance through it. This will give you some of the idea how to monitor and track the progress on sustainable development goal. Otherwise, like the Millennium Development Goals, developing countries like Pakistan and the other OCI countries, they will be in basically a difficult situation to progress, to report, basically to monitor and progress report to the United Nations. Even then, we would have been done a lot of work, but if we don't properly monitor it and we are not able to report it to the United Nations and its institution, then our all work will be basically will not be properly highlighted at the international forum. So this is one of the most important document that we would like to see. So what we can offer to our sister organization, OIC countries, If you look at this, we are managing one of the largest irrigation system in the world. In fact, we are in many of the crops, we are in the top 10 countries, and we are managing one or the other way, our food security of the over 20 million people. So we are managing. And these are basically one of the largest strength of not only our country, it's our institutions, it's our nation, and this is one of the largest strength. One of the largest strength we have managing the system. In this context, we can help our our sister organization and countries, OSCE countries, particularly on the use of the IoT for water resources management, rainwater harvesting and recharge, monitoring of the sustainable development goal using the policy support system that has been developed by the United Nations University, and we are partner with them very big right from the beginning. Then irrigation scheduling, when to apply in, how much to apply water. Water quality monitoring and management is very important, as I mentioned in the beginning. And then groundwater investigation and monitoring management is, these are some of the areas where we can offer our services to our sister organization, to our brothers living in OSCE countries. So with these remarks, thank you very much. I think now the floor is back to Khazima, and if you'd like to have any question, I am available here.
Thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation and a very informative one, I would say. And you can see that there are numerous comments regarding your excellent presentation and talk today. So we have some questions. With your permission, should I read them for you?
Sure, sure.
So we have one question from Mr. Shahid Ahmed. He's saying that in Punjab and Sindh province, there are more than 100 of canals for saline water drain. Among them, few are functional, while more than 90% of these canals are not functional. The situation in Sindh province, in the districts like Shikarpur, Larkana, Dadu are severely waterlogged. Could PCRWR bring them upgrade for future soil acclimatization in these areas?
Thank you very much, Shah sir. This is a very important question. In fact, nowadays we are focusing our work on the lower Indus. Particularly, we have recently government of Pakistan has approved a project worth rupees 480 million, where we are going to reclaim the waterlogged land through our technology, tile drainage system, which I already mentioned. At the same time, this waterlogging and salinity cannot be eradicated permanent. This is basically a dynamic process. It's not a static process. Once you remove, then it will be again there. So now we are basically moving towards the concept of living with salinity and using this drainage effluent instead of removing the drainage effluent from the system, which is basically again cost intensive, and it has a lot of environmental complications. It is now the world is moving towards how to you can better use the drainage water and how you can live with the salinity. If you look at the this one of the present one of the report on extreme left hand side, adaptation to salinity in the southern Indus Basin. So this is basically provide a comprehensive view and the way forward how to live with the salinity, because you cannot eradicate salinity forever. So you have to live with it, with the salt tolerant crops, with some other your practices to keep. Basically, the idea is to keep the salinity below the root zone. So we are working on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So here is another question from Dr. Shahid himself again. In the recent decades, many national and international oil exploration companies had completed their exploration operations to investigate oil and gas in Punjab and Sindh. Major groundwater streams are disturbed and contaminated with salt and heavy water. This water is not suitable for daily use and consumption. Major soil waterborne diseases are being spread by this groundwater. Could you propose some alternatives to mitigate these challenges in the rural and the urban community of Pakistan due to this contaminated groundwater?
Basically, here we have to use the concept of the zero liquid discharge, which basically we are now. Recently, we have developed a water conservation strategy for our ministry, and for particularly the point you are mentioning is that is basically the concept of the zero liquid waste. Any industry like the oil exploration, companies, they should reuse that water instead of throwing it to the this mainstream or the other areas, and then polluting and deteriorating the entire ecosystem. So we are basically proposing this policy, guidelines for our national and provincial government to adopt this policy of the zero liquid discharge. So they are bound to use and reuse, reduce, use and reuse any amount of water they are producing, whether it is a wastewater or it is the saline pumped water.
Thank you very much, sir. So we have another question which is quite relevant to situation in Pakistan nowadays. So major cities also have rainwater. How can they store and manage it?
Yeah, this is very simple. I wish my colleague, they have put one of the, I will ask them if they can quickly do it. We have introduced the techniques of the rainwater harvesting both on the surface and on the groundwater. Okay, the water that is coming to your system, particularly in the urban area, the water from your rooftops, water from your driveways, water from your lawn, water from your grounds, and even from the roads. This water can be stored either on the surface to make some small lakes. And you just imagine if you make small lakes in the cities and in the housing society or the area where you are living, what kind of aesthetic value it will add to that area. It will help to improve the aesthetic value. It will help to improve the microclimate change. It will help to recharge the groundwater. It will help to reduce the urban flooding as well. Number one. Number two, we have also introduced the technology which I mentioned, that groundwater recharge technology. There is tremendous.
I can do that. As well.
Yes, sir. There is tremendous.
Apologies, kindly continue.
Let me to finish my. There is a tremendous potential. For example, CDA, Capital Development Authority, they are installing 100 recharge well with their own resources, and so far they have completed 50. And during the last few rain, more than 6 million gallon of water has been recharged, because we have installed the measuring flow meters there as well. More than 6 million gallons of water has been recharged into the aquifer. Number one. When just you look at, I will give you some simple arithmetic. If for drinking purpose we assume 1 gallon, water per day for one person, it means you have saved the water, secured the water for 6 million people with a few rainfalls. Besides having the other benefits, as I mentioned, that tolerance the urban flooding and the associated issues. So these are simple and smart techniques. And if I could not basically understand your question, if you are talking about the its cost basically vary over it depends on the area where you are basically going to recharge, going to harvest water, the rainwater potential, the groundwater hydrology, lithology, all these parameters. Basically, groundwater recharge is quite a complex phenomena. Number one, the technology of groundwater pumping in reverse order has to be used. Number two, the technology of the rainwater harvesting has to be used. So both have to be clubbed for appropriately groundwater recharging purposes.
Thank you, sir. So as we are near the end of the event, so I'll just take last two questions. Number one is from Dr. Hafiz Rahman. He's asking, how can crop zoning help to reduce water footprint?
Yeah, definitely. This is a very important question. For example, if we, Dr. Hafiz, remember, when we were young, there was a crop zoning, and sugarcane was grown in particular area, and that was basically they were allowed to take those cane onto particularly sugar mills. Okay, basically because these are the high water requirement crops, they need to be basically restricted to only those areas. Number one, where rainfall it is sufficient, surface water is sufficient, or the groundwater is relatively fresh and shallow, like the area we have Sialkot, Narowal, Sahiwal. Because these are, as I mentioned, that 1 kilogram of rice, it needs 5 tons of water. Okay, if you go to the southern Punjab, any other area, which is basically where you are relying on the groundwater, which groundwater is deep and saline, so definitely it will has a tremendous impact on the water footprints. So you have to basically restrict these both crop, particularly rice and sugar, to certain area. And secondly, we should only produce these these crops for our domestic needs, because their export export basically is all a loss again. Instead, we should focus on producing the oilseed crops, where the oilseed crops their basically water requirement is almost 10 times less than the sugarcane and the rice. I give you one example. We are exporting rice to the tune of about $2 billion, and almost same amount of $2 billion we are importing the oilseed. Okay, oilseed. So if you just reduce investing on rice and focus on the oilseed crops, you will not be in a loss in terms of your foreign exchange, but your water will be saved more than 10 times, which we are basically virtually exporting this fresh water to other countries. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, sir. So here's another question from Mr. Shahzad Ahmed. He's asking, kindly throw some light on adoptability of lysimetric-based irrigation scheduling by farmers, number one. And secondly, can we expect that Pakistan's irrigation system will shift from supply-based to demand-based?
Let me to answer your second question first. It will take, basically it will take some time. Because our system basically was divided, all was designed on the supply based. We have the Varabandi system, where we provide water weekly to the farmers according to land and crops. So it will take time, but the government is now taking some serious steps for it. Coming to your first question, how the crop water requirement and this knowledge can be useful for the farmers and how they can apply. I think that initially adaptation of crop water requirement and irrigation scheduling is quite difficult and complex. And in fact, it is outside, out of the reach of the common farmers, because it is either based on the soil moisture knowledge, which you will get through the soil moisture equipment like tensiometers or other gypsum blocks or some others, or you will have to get data from the climate change, and you will have to use some numerical models. Okay. And both are basically difficult. So what we have now, as I mentioned, we are using this. We are basically downloading the data from the satellite data and downscaling it to the district and to the canal command level. Then using the crop coefficient, which we determine through the lysimeter studies, through that we basically generate a message for the farmers in Urdu language. How much water his particular crop, for example, in Sugoda wheat, how much water it has consumed during the last week, and what will be the status of rainfall during the coming week, and what would be the wind speed during the coming week. So he can, for example, if he has, in a common language, if he has applied, normally our farmers, if you talk to the farmers, they will tell you that they are basically, in each irrigation, they apply on an average 3 inches of water. Our message is also in inches. So if he applied 3 inches of water to his particular crop, and if you send them message that last week your crop has taken 0.5 inches of water, it means he clearly understand, and we have interviewed the farmer that still 2.5 inches of water is available with his soil, so that he can prolong. So he keep on adding the last week information to his gadget, and then ultimately when he sees that all the moisture is close to disappear, he apply water. By doing so, we have basically we are following the farmers as well. The farmers reported that they in certain cases they are able to, for example, particular case of wheat, they have been able to skip 2 irrigations. If, for example, out of 3 or 4 total irrigation of wheat, if the farmer is able to skip even 1 irrigation because of this simple and smart technology, he is basically he is doing a great job. And this is basically the success of this technology. And secondly, you can very simply upscale it to the larger area, because you don't need to work on the modeling tool. You don't need the climate data, numerical model. You don't need soil moisture, equipment, because they have their own limitation, and you cannot use those soil moisture equipments for the larger area. I hope I answer your question.
Thank you very much, sir. As we're running out of time, so I'll just take a last question, which I think is an important one. So it is from Mr. Amar Matloob. He's asking, what is your opinion about water pricing and how it can help achieve judicious water use in Indus Basin?
I think this is one of the most important, one of the most burning questions. And this is one of the most area which basically neglected in the area. Our national water policy very clearly, demonstrate that water pricing in all sectors, agriculture, industrial, and domestic sector, will be brought to the reasonable levels. Number one. Number two, they also talk about the 100% metering for the domestic and industrial sector. So these are basically ambitious targets that has been given in the national water policy, because our economy or our system is basically politically driven system, and there are some challenges in the use of increasing the prices. But gradually, government of Pakistan is basically, and provinces now they are taking some steps towards increasing the Abhyana and the pricing for the domestic use. One of the things I think you will see also important that this season government of Sindh they ban rice cultivation on certain almost 7 of their canal commands for this Kharif season. So now there is a much better awareness for the policy makers and the practitioners, and there is basically knowledge base available for them to make some informed decisions. So I hope that with time this water pricing issue will be taken up, and this is very important. Otherwise, there is no incentive for the stakeholder to save water.
Right. So thank you very much. With this, we come to end of our talk today. And there are so many questions still in the chat box, but I would request these participants to please send an email to Professor Ashraf. Probably his team will get back to you with the answers, inshallah. And so thank you very much for your time and for this excellent presentation, I would say. And also I would like, on behalf of Comstech, I would like to thank our participants who remained with us, and we had a very interactive session. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you in some other event of Comstech. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.